Hello everybody, welcome back to Reaper Minis TV. Before getting into this episode's reviews, I wanted to share something with you that I got in my last order from Reaper. Included in the miniatures were a couple of posters, or mini posters. This is one of them. I don't know if this is the cover for the upcoming Savage North supplement. If it is, great, now you have a preview of it. If it's not, well, still a cool picture anyway, so enjoy. Okay, on to reviews. This first guy is from the Chronoscope line, but you're also going to see him make appearances in the Darkspawn armies in Warlord. This is a Bethalian Primarch, and it's a large multi-piece model. In Chronoscope, they would probably represent some kind of alien entity that's coming down to menace or challenge your player characters in some kind of futuristic or modern game. In Warlord, they're used in the Darkspawn army. The Primarch is a captain. He's a leader of some troops. There are also two other kinds. There's a Bethalian Centurion and a Bethalian Exarch in the Darkspawn army, and there's also another one, but it's a bipedal one, almost like a Mind Flayer kind of guy, and that's Dakul. He's a Bethalian, and he's in my Darkspawn army also. But back to the Primarch now. In the pack, you get two arms, the main segmented body that has part of the head and some of the tentacles. There's an extra tentacle that goes on his face, and then you get the large head part that has the very large carapace, almost hood, and a couple other tentacles. All of it goes together fairly easily. The head slips right into place, and then you have the extra tentacle that goes in kind of like right in front of the center of his face, and then the arms fit right into place into a ball and socket joint. Really minor cleaning here, a couple little bits between the carapace that had to be cleaned off. There were some mold bits there, and then very minor mold lines. Really not an issue as far as cleaning is concerned. For me, he'll probably end up serving a couple purposes. He can fit into my Darkspawn army pretty well, along with any of the other Bethalians. I could also use him in D20 Future, like I mentioned earlier, but I'm also very, very much toying with the idea of trying to do a little bit of a conversion on a couple of these to put them into a Tyranid army I'm building for 40k to use them as zoanthropes or something like that. So I'm not really sure yet if that's going to work, but we'll see. Maybe I'll post an episode that has a conversion on a couple of these in there. Maybe on second thought they might make better Raveners instead of zoanthropes, but we'll see what happens. This next guy is named Decker Lugstampf, and he's a steampunk hero. And if you immediately think that he could walk right into a game of Iron Kingdoms role-playing or onto the field in a War Machine or Hordes game, that's exactly what I'm thinking also. I think you could paint him up to be a perfect addition to a Cygnar or a Khador army, just depending on how you paint him. Maybe leans a little more towards Cygnar in my mind, but I think either way he'd be fine. You could also paint him up, I guess, as a mercenary guy also. He comes in three pieces. His right arm holds a wrench, and that fits right into place in a small ball and socket joint. There's also a burner or steam vent that goes on his back, and that also fits right into place. Both of these pieces were cast on a separate sprue, so they need to be clipped off and cleaned a little bit. Each one of them had a little bit of cleaning necessary. On the main guy himself, there was not a lot of cleaning necessary. Not really any visible mold lines, not any extra bits of metal or anything like that from the casting process, so he came out very clean. He was ready to go right out of the blister. And assembly and basing was done in about a minute or so, so everything really quick to get him ready to be primed and painted. His armor is a sort of steam-powered plate mail armor. No helmet to cover his bald head. He has a pretty full beard that you can see. Over his right eye, there's a monocle that he's wearing, adds a little bit of flavor or character to the model. I like the pose of the model where he's standing with his powered fist ready to take somebody on. The wrench, in the other hand, in his right hand, I think you could very easily convert into a sword or some other kind of weapon if you wanted to. That's probably what I'll do for him. To me, he has a little bit of a mechanic role, which is fine if you want to use him in that role. I would rather use him as a fighter-type player character, maybe a warlord or a paladin in D&D 4th edition, something like that. So I'm going to swap out the wrench for another kind of weapon, but it looks like it'll be a very easy conversion. Okay, on to some regular fantasy stuff now, and here we have a pack of 3 different animal companions, and this is actually the second pack of animal companions. In this one we get a wolf, a cat, and a spider. All 3 of them look fine to me. They all needed some cleaning. They had little bits of extra metal from the casting process, but I really couldn't see any mold lines, no defects or anything like that. A lot of the cleaning was also limited to the bases on the wolf and the large cat. If you have a ranger-type character in 4th edition D&D or any other fantasy role-playing game where you get to have animal companions and you're looking for a cat, a spider, or a wolf, you'd find what you need here. Next we'll look at 2 spellcasting types, and the first is Anirian. He's a wood elf wizard, and single-piece model here. He carries a large staff in 2 hands and wears a long cloak with a pointed hood. You can see his long hair coming out from under the cloak, and you'll be able to see some of his face looking up into the hooded area, but not a lot of flesh on the model, just his hands and the face that's partially hidden by the hood itself. He's built as a wood elf wizard, but I think you could very easily use him as a human, any other kind of elf. Maybe not some of the more exotic kinds of humanoids, but I think half-elf, elf, or human, he'd pass just fine. So I think he'd be perfectly suitable as a player character model or even as a spellcaster in a tabletop miniatures game. Our next spellcaster is named Autumn Bronzeleaf, and she's a female elf wizard, and there's a lot more that distinguishes her in my mind as an elf rather than Anirian that we just looked at, who could pass for a couple different races. She does look more elf-like to me, and even more specifically wood elf. You can see there's a leaf pattern up on her staff and even in some of the clothes on the bodice that she's wearing, down covering her midriff. There's a leaf pattern there, and she just feels more elf-like to me and not maybe as passable as a human. Autumn Bronzeleaf is a single-piece model. She's carrying a large staff in one hand, and there's a lot of fairly minute detail on the model. You can see there's the grain on the wood of the staff that's been sculpted in. I already mentioned the leaf pattern that's covering her midriff. There's a lot of detail down on her leggings also. So this is a miniature that you'll want to take time with and really do up nicely. It may be a little more daunting for inexperienced painters, but I think it's a very cool looking model, has a lot of character and little detail to it that should really stand out. Okay, and on to a couple of Warlord releases. First up is Bone Flayer. He's a Gnoll Sergeant, and he comes in 3 pieces. This is a rather hefty or large model, about ogre-sized model if you want a comparison. He's wearing similar armor to another Gnoll that I like a lot, Bloodmane, a Gnoll Champion. So he's got the shield that has the prongs on the end of it that he's holding in his left hand, and this fits onto the arm up just around the elbow, and it's a pretty flat-on-flat joint where it fits together. In his right hand he's carrying a Morning Star, and this fits also in about the same place right around the elbow area. And this area is a ball and socket joint. I needed to trim down the ball a little bit just to get it to fit perfectly. You can adjust the pose or how the Morning Star is being positioned a little bit because the chain. Just be careful that you don't weaken it enough to break it, because it is a little weaker than just a regular shaft on a sword because it has all the little links in the chain. Except for the difference in weaponry, and there's a few bits of detail that are on Bloodmane that I referenced earlier that are not on this model. It's almost the exact model, but I have a sort of affinity for gnolls, so I'm very okay with Bone Flayer looking a lot like Bloodmane, and any or all of these gnolls, especially including Bone Flayer, will find their way into my D&D campaign at some point. And the last figure for this time around is called the Handmaiden of Keskura. It's a single-piece model, and it is a werfox female, and not wearing a whole lot of clothing here, but her naughty bits up top are, I guess, fur covered, so I didn't take any offense to it, so I think it's going to be fine for anybody's gaming table. She's got a dagger in one hand and sort of crouched over, ready to pounce on an enemy. She's wearing a loincloth with a belt and has a couple of pouches on the back side, right around where her big bushy tail is. Her main obvious use is in a warlord army, but if you needed a werfox miniature, I think she would do just fine there. You might be able to use her in an encounter, like a wilderness encounter, where you have wolves and werewolves and other were-creatures like her going up against the party. So, good model, simple model. I think she'll be easy to paint to a good standard, and that'll wrap us up for this episode. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.